And to talk about the European vote, we are joined by our expert, Sergej Sumlenny, director at the European Resilience Initiative Center. Hello, Sergej. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having invited me. It's a pleasure and an honor every time.
So, Sergej, what tendencies can we observe among Central and Eastern European voters? And here I'm talking about the turnout, the political views, etc.
Well, we observe it since many years, actually, that the European parliamentary elections are always not as much attended by the voters compared to national elections. And that is the phenomenon you can observe in every and each European country. Those countries where we have traditionally high attendance of national elections, they have high attendance of European Parliament elections, but they are still lower than the national elections. That is a paradox because the European Union practically decides much more compared in the daily life of people compared to a national election. Like national parliaments, they of course have decided on security and foreign relations, but even in these areas, the European Union has more and more to decide compared to national states. And what is about like the economy, the trade and other things, the European Union has much more power to decide. Practically, the national parliaments can, of course, decide on taxes and other issues, but those basic fundamental issues, they are being decided in Brussels. And that's a paradox that the voters still have not understood it. But of course, another reason is that the European Parliament itself cannot be compared to national parliaments because the European Parliament, in contrary to national ones, doesn't have a right to propose legislation. It only votes, like it elects the head of European Commission, but it doesn't have the legislative initiative compared to national parliament. And that is what is a significant and the most important difference between the European Parliament and the national parliament.
Right, Sergej, you said not to compare the European Parliament to national parliaments. Nevertheless, I'd like to compare the situation in the member states to the global, let's say, or regional situation of the whole of EU. So in Poland, the eastern regions are voting differently to western regions. The same pattern we observe in Slovakia, for example. I guess the same pattern we can observe in Germany. So is, in general, the West voting differently to the East?
Oh, yes, it is one phenomenon in many European countries that the East and the West, they vote differently. In Germany, in particular, it can be explained by the German history of the partition of Germany into the communist Soviet-controlled GDR in the East and Western democratic, like free Federal Republic of Germany. But it's not only a German phenomenon, so it cannot be only explained by the partition. But you're absolutely right. There are quite different approaches in Germany, in particular in the East. The most popular party is the far-right Alternative for Germany, AfD. They will most probably get most votes also on European Parliament elections too. Your colleague has already explained in his like explanation of what is going on electoral field that AfD has been expelled from the conservative, like right conservative group in the European Parliament because it's too far right. And that is actually something to understand, like for the party, like Marine Le Pen's party or the others, the AfD was too far right. That is a quality which one needs to achieve first. And yes, but we also have the division of south to east, like in Italy, for example, or in other countries. So yes, regional divisions are taking their place, but of course divisions between the countries too, and different countries have different amount of votes, not votes, but different amount of seats they can fill. And in many countries, for example, in Austria, there is a debate now, is it worth to go to the elections when Austria, such strong economy provides so few seats to the European Parliament and practically cannot decide anything. That is, of course, all the discussions which are still to be decided to increase the outcome of the election, to like motivate people to come and vote.
Well, for many voters, these elections, European Parliament elections, and also the institution as a whole is a very complex topic. People, and you said it, people don't understand what is happening inside European Union. So would you agree with me that EU elections serve as a de facto, referendum on the party in power in their country? Because it's just easier to vote on people that you know instead of on the policies of the European Parliament as a whole.
Well, there is a complex of challenges here. Like first, compared to if you compare it to Germany, in Germany you can vote to a certain deputy in your electoral district. You can vote for a party, but you have two votes. You can vote for a certain deputy too. For the European elections, there is no such options. You just vote for the party, and then you have the result outcome, how many people go from this party to Brussels. Then, of course, at the end, it's not your party which sits in Brussels, but this party comes to Brussels as a part of the group of other parties. And here we can see that, for example, the German Greens, they are much more bourgeois conservative compared, let me say, to the French Greens. The French Greens are much left than the German Greens, but the German Greens are much more left than, let me say, the Latvian Greens. And here you can, the parties, they need to find their group and they work within that group, but still they are not responsible to the whole European Union as a part of this group, but only to their electors, and that makes the whole situation complex. Otherwise, for example, in Germany, it is well known that for many German politicians, the way to Brussels is practically a way to some sort of a pension, not for everyone, of course, and we now see that a lot of young politicians try to go to Brussels, but still, you in most cases, you leave national politics. And being a deputy of the European Parliament, a body which doesn't have any legislative initiative, and a huge body where you need to talk to people from other countries with other national agendas, it mostly is much more complicated way to profile themselves than in a national parliament. So for many, it's just way to uncharted waters, and that also negatively, I would say, negatively impacts the quality of politicians who go to Brussels. Those who really want to make career in Germany, they stay in Germany and try to go to Bundestag to be later ministers or the deputies in the ministries, but they cannot go to Brussels, because when to Brussels is practically one way.
Mm-hmm. Right, Sergej, so far polls show that there's, that the status quo will be maintained more or less in the European Parliament. We'll have the new Parliament, it will be more or less the same. Well, the far right is gaining some votes, but not that much to make a huge difference. But there's a new factor here, the country that's taking over the European presidency, namely Hungary. So do you see any dangers here for the unity of the bloc during this 6 months under Hungarian rule? And of course, the question that follows is Ukraine. Can it somehow hamper European help for Ukraine?
Of course, there is always a danger that countries which are which profiling themselves as European skeptical, that they can use their presidency as a tool to block whatever they can. And for Viktor Orban, the leader of Hungary, who has proven himself to be extremely European skeptical and pro-Russian, we need to name it by name. It was always the option when he communicated with Brussels. He always wanted to have some bargain. He always reminded that he can block everything. He always wanted to get either more EU money, or he wanted to get more freedom for his country itself, that the EU doesn't intervene in his internal authoritarian force, etc. Of course, he will use this option too. The good thing is that it looks like the European Union during the last years have found a way to deal with people like Orban. The problem can occur when there will be more than one, two Orbans, not only Orban, Fico, but let me say other people who come to power. And that is, of course, the things which can, after national elections, because the national elections change the national leaders. And here, of course, we all look in Germany, let me say, for the next parliamentary elections, what will be in September 25 in our country. And before, in September this year, there will be elections in eastern part of Germany with high chances of far-right party being the strongest party. Of course, in the UK, there will be national elections now, but they don't look to be dangerous. But still, there are always national elections, and always we have seen with Fico that populism and anti-European attitude really have chances in many countries in Europe, and that is still a danger because, as you said before in your graphics, many people in countries in Europe do not understand why they do need European Union, despite the fact that they really need it. They don't see just how much they get from the EU, but the feeling is, oh, we can do without, so we vote for people who promise us something fast, something good.
Mm-hmm. And the same applies to France and Rassemblement National, of course. Sergej Sumlenny, Director of the European Resilience Initiative Centre, was our guest tonight. Thank you very much, Sergej.
Thank you so much.